Hey, greetings YouTube Performance Reviews, where I give you the review from the technician's point of view. And today I have a Halo. Now, this is a very interesting machine, and it was given to me by one of our regulars over here, so big thank you to Susan for giving this to the channel. This is before Ork bought Halo, and if you're unfamiliar, Halo was a company that came out with a lightweight small vacuum that has a UV light that was supposed to sanitize the carpet. Now, as you know, UV light destroys DNA and biological stuff. So this, in theory, could work, but it also meant it came with a whole host of challenges of having a UV light that is harmful to skin and eyes of people or animals, and putting that on a household appliance like a vacuum. So this is a extremely quirky machine, and I'm sure Doug DeMero would appreciate the number of quirks that are on this little vacuum. I think its first quirk is going to be its size. It's significantly smaller, even compared to something like an Ork. It's really small. And that is where the story begins, is Halo was a threat to Ork. And as you can see, it's even a little smaller than this Ork XL21 platform. It's a little bit narrower, it's a little bit smaller, it's a little bit more compact. Yeah, you can see that this is just even smaller than an XL21, and it's a little heavier though. Now, as I've been showing this, you notice the handle is in the down position. It has a storage handle. So there's it says pull, and the handle actually telescopes into the right position, so it is now the length of a normal vacuum. So let's talk about the quirks of the controls. So there's a trigger here, which has a mushy micro switch, and then there's these mushy buttons for suction control right here on the machine. Right where the cord goes into the machine is your brush on and off, and the on and off switch for the vacuum. Also a reset. So that's kind of weird. Now it does have a quick release cord, and the cord feels very, very cheap, almost shark-like. Again, the switch is down here, not on the handle, which is below my knee slightly. Right there, and there is a reset button of some sort right there as well. So once we turn this on, you're going to have a plus and minus button, suction high, low, whatever. So we're going to do that real quick. Now you may have noticed when I'm playing with that, those buttons seem to have some sort of lag to them. You know, I probably should have gone online and looked at a manual before I started doing this, but I just wanted to give you my honest opinion of what this was. We can see ultraviolet light vacuum molded in the bumper. But more importantly, those high-low adjustments were not a suction control. They are actually an automated height adjustment, and I'm going to show that to you. So as you can see, it actually adjusts the height from there versus a knob on the front. It's an interesting innovation. Dyson DC28 is the only other vacuum I can think of that had an electronic height adjustment that was user-controlled. Of course, you also have the Cibo X series where it's automatically controlled. But I can't think of one that has a user control at your fingertips. No, maybe the Hoover Z. The Hoover Z may have. Anyways, strange feature on this machine. Now, underneath this hard cover, this is kind of reminiscent of some of the older Hoovers in that fashion. Pull this up, and, well, we have a hinged cover. Not a terrible thing. And I have in here a Ork Halo bag shoved in there, which is just a little bit too long, but I really don't know what else I would put in there. It is the right fitting. If I pull this out, it's probably even gonna, yeah. Oh, that's an Ork LW bag. My bad. So, again, they don't really make bags for this thing anymore, so I'm just kind of using what I have. If you have one of these, this is not like a suggestion that you go out and buy that. This is just what this is. There's a pre-motor like charcoal filter under here, and then you have to have the bag door open, kinda, sorta. Let's go over to where the filter is. I don't know how you're supposed to get to this as a consumer. So underneath this panel, which has, again, there's no clear way for a consumer to really open this. I'm using my fingernails here. We have a HEPA filter, and that HEPA filter has a nice thick gasket in it. And remember, the small motor is blowing into the HEPA filter from the bag and stuff. don't really know how effective this HEPA filter really was back in the day. It doesn't seem like a sealed system to me from its overall construction, and everything feels how should I put this? Everything feels very shark-like in terms of its like build quality and feel, and like this plastic definitely has some metal mixed into it to make it metallic, and I would almost guarantee you that there is lead in this plastic. We do have a nice soft bumper on here. The Halo logo looks like it should light up, but does not actually light up there, and there's no headlight on this model. Now there are a few different ones of these made. There was a bigger black one that had tools on board, and then of course later Ork would buy this company. So we have a danger logo here about the light, and again this UV light, which only sanitizes a small part, doesn't do the whole cleaning path of the machine. So that's interesting. Now we have, this is a UVX32800 is the model. Serial number is right here. We have 328. I want to say these were around 2005-ish. This was a trend we would see up until about 2007. We had a couple companies making these. Now I'm going to try and bypass all the sensors and see if, nope, as you can see, I can't bypass the sensors or the light is broken, which is a possibility considering the age. Now let's go in the shop and talk about what is driving this little brush roller. Alright, let's talk about the underside of the Halo, the belly of the beast. So this is pretty interesting what's going on here. So we do have the light, which is an incandescent UV light. Again, the technology, the time this is from. But we also have here these wheels. And what these wheels are doing is these are sensors. And as these turn, as these move, these allow this light to turn on or off. Still, people manage to discolor things with this, and of course you never want to look at this UV light. Now the brush roller, which looks kind of, well, dinky, and it is, but what's interesting about this, besides having 4 rows of bristles, is it is gear driven. And gear driven brush rollers are super uncommon. There's like a whole little gearbox in here. Unfortunately, this one is being stubborn and does not want to be open further than this. And I don't want to break it with how rare and strange this is. But yeah, it's got a gear drive, and it's got these tiny sealed bearings, very similar to like an XL21, and it's a plastic core brush roller. Again, nothing wrong with plastic core brush rollers. But this one is a little dinky, and as we know, really thin brush rollers build up stuff, and it took me a while to get this one this clean when it came in. So yeah, here is the Halo. You can see it consumes 5 amps, so not a whole lot of electricity. And then the other thing is that these wheels also have switches in them. So when it's like this, that light will turn off. When you're pushing on the carpet, yeah, so there's a whole bunch of positive engagement that has to go on for this light to turn on. All right, folks, we've switched to the studio microphone. You're gonna hear the real sound of this thing running. It's kind of a screamer, so if you have headphones on, you might want to turn those down. Let's go ahead and do our standard pickup test. We have fresh pet hair, cat litter, fine sand, and some breakfast cereal. Let's see how the Ork Halo does. Now, I just did 2 passes because this is not something you can go out and buy, and you know, we're not so much interested in the precise pickup test. You can see it left the fine sand pretty much across the board. Yeah, it picked up the pet hair, picked up the breakfast cereal, but left the fine sand. Again, most direct air machines will struggle with that. You know, kind of tossed a piece of breakfast cereal over here. Did all right. So this is a machine I would have probably ripped into had this been on the market at its time. This would have been far more expensive than something like a Sanitaire, which, you know, you used to be able to pick up for 250, 300 bucks when this was being sold. Thinking what else was on the market. There were a lot of things that competed with this. All right, I've put a huge mess on the hard floor here. I got that same test we did if we got fine sand, cat litter, breakfast cereal, pet hair. Let's see how it does. I'm going to put it on low, and I'm going to have the brush off as you would use this. Well, that certainly did better than expected. You can see there's still, it's like fine sand and dust still on the floor, but it got the majority of it after a pass or two. I'm really kind of impressed with that in terms of being kind of a weird direct air machine that it picked up so well. Yeah, okay. But we still got some stuff stuck underneath. Yeah, there's still some stuff stuck in there. Well, that most certainly was interesting. Well, this certainly has been an interesting look into a vacuum. I've really never seen one of these working at all. These have always come in with like bad motors, or the brush roller has that geared system. I've seen those take a shit. So I've really had a mostly negative experience with these Halos and not being able to get parts or repair them. So to see one coming in the wild, except for that light, okay, I guess it's not 100%, but 90% functional, is amazing, and it's cool to see. Again, big thank you to Susan for bringing this to me. She knew I liked weird old machines. Just kind of interested to look back in time before TTI swallowed a company, or it may not have been Oric at the time. But yeah, thanks for watching. If you really like this content, give it a thumbs up. That helps us out a whole lot. If you want to share this to your favorite social media platform, I would appreciate it. Definitely go follow us on X and Instagram, where we post all sorts of other updates as well. And we'll see you in the next video. Have a great day.